So let's suppose that the biblical documents written a decade or more after the events they report, written exclusively by the devotees of a new religious movement, not even by first-hand witnesses, detailing events for which there's pretty much no independent confirmation, constitutes really, really good evidence that there was an empty tomb and that the disciples did report seeing the risen Christ. Is that, in turn, good evidence that Jesus was resurrected? Evidence supports a hypothesis to the extent the evidence is expected, given the hypothesis is true, and unexpected otherwise. The absolutely crucial point to note is this: we have good reason to expect some baffling, very hard to explain in mundane terms, reports to crop up occasionally anyway, whether or not there are any miracles or gods or flying saucers. So the fact that an otherwise baffling, hard to explain case has shown up provides us with little, if any, evidence that a miracle has occurred.
I don't see how testimony alone could ever be sufficient evidence that the laws of physics were suspended, which is what Miraculous claims are. Occasionally what we think is a law of physics is shown not to be, for example the law of conservation of parity. This turned out to not really be a law, but this was not shown by testimony. If thousands of people testified under oath that they saw the law of conservation of parity being violated, that would not be a good reason to discard it. What falsified the law of parity was the Wu experiment, which presented physical evidence and a method that could be repeated so skeptics could investigate the matter for themselves. Nothing less than that warrants a belief in the occurrence of an event that all other evidence indicates does not occur.
What about the resurrection of Jesus? Dr. Law rightly points out that there are many reports of paranormal phenomena, and these ought to make us very cautious in assessing miracle claims. But I would say two things. First of all, any claim must be weighed by objective criteria: explanatory scope, explanatory power, plausibility, degree of ad hocness. And I don't know of any natural explanation that passes those criteria, as well as the explanation that God raised Jesus from the dead.
First of all, any claim of a miracle cannot be reasonably called plausible. Secondly, I really don't see why explanatory scope, explanatory power, and a low degree of ad hocness is enough to warrant belief in the occurrence of an event that all other evidence seems to indicate is not possible. Craig has said elsewhere that the only reason someone would believe that divine intervention is not a reasonable explanation for the resurrection accounts is if they do not believe that there is a God who performs miracles. I think Craig generally only uses this argument as a means of convincing theists that Jesus was a god, rather than as a means of demonstrating that a god exists, because it is useless as an argument for theism per se.